I wrote to somebody the other day that Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders had something in common. What they had in common is each of them tapped into and exploited a historical moment. In the case of Barack Obama, after the catastrophe of the Bush-Cheney years, both domestically with the crash of the economy and internationally with the debacle of the Iraq War, the American people were ready for a radical change, or large numbers of the American people were ready for, let's not call it a radical change, a radical break with the past. And people imagined that a Black president would be, so to speak, the tip of the iceberg of a radical rupture with the past. Namely, if we elect a Black president, then it's going to inaugurate spectacular changes in our society, of which the Black president would be the tip of an iceberg. As it happened, it was just a tip. There was no iceberg, because Barack Obama had no intention whatsoever of radically changing the status quo. His goal was not that he had any political goals, because he was a completely apolitical person. He has no interest whatever in politics. But what he intended to do was to bring in the best and the brightest of the ruling elite to stabilize the status quo. So he brought in, if you remember, his cabinet was Larry Summers, Timothy Geithner, Hillary Clinton, Robert Gates, who was Bush's Secretary of Defense. He was going to bring in the best and the brightest to stabilize the status quo, not to change it. He never had any intention of changing it. He actually never had any intention of doing anything except give speeches, because he had no interest in politics, none. He was like George Bush Jr. George Bush Jr. had no interest in politics. He was confident that Cheney and Rumsfeld could run the show, which they did, because Cheney and Rumsfeld weren't interested in the limelight. They just wanted the power.
Mm-hmm.
They had the class interests of their class in mind. They just wanted the power. Who needs the limelight? And Obama, he figured from his years at Harvard Law School and being the editor of the Harvard Law Review, he figured all he has to do is give speeches. No, really, he could wing it with speeches, and then behind the scenes, the geniuses, for him, the geniuses were always, their two characteristics are very simple. They're white and they're Jewish. If you're white and Jewish, you're a certifiable genius. As Cornel West describes it, Obama would get that chill, that frisson down his spine when he was around these white geniuses, and they knew how to massage his ego, to
Mm-hmm.
tell him how smart he is, which he was not. He was not a particularly intelligent person. There's no evidence for that. But they told it to him, and he got excited by it. Now, Bernie capitalized on another moment, namely, people were now hungering for a change, but they weren't going to settle anymore for that tip of what they thought would be the iceberg. They wanted to see the iceberg. What are you selling? And he sold them explicitly a class-based platform, which resonated for that 80%. Medicare for all, abolish student tuition, abolish student debt, a Green New Deal, which means investing in public infrastructure and jobs, And well, those are the main planks of his, raising the minimum wage, all that stuff. Now, the difference between Bernie and Obama, each capitalized on the moment. What Bernie did, his main legacy is he brought to the surface the possibility that a class-based movement might be able to come to power. If you build a movement on class, it has a reasonable chance, and as we both agreed before the interview began, up until South Carolina, it looked like it was going to happen, of a class-based movement might have a real chance of achieving power, just like the Jerry Corbyn movement in the United Kingdom preceding it. The difference between, in my opinion, Obama and Bernie is Bernie was sincere. I have no doubt about that. However, when the moment of truth came between choosing between the Democratic Party and his base, he chose the party. Once Biden got elected, when he initially endorsed Biden, I gave him a pass because I understood what was in my opinion, what was going on. Namely, he did not want to have to bear the burden of being told that because of him, Trump won the election. So he didn't want to have to carry that burden with him. And so he immediately endorsed Biden and went out campaigning for him so that nobody could say, if Trump won, what Hillary said in 2016, namely it was Bernie's fault.
Mm-hmm.
However, once Biden won, Bernie had two options. One option is to call out his people in mass demonstrations, mass civil disobedience, just like the civil rights movement. It wouldn't have been an easy struggle, but if you get masses of people organized, it's possible to win. Even the bus strike in Montgomery, Alabama, that took a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant, old folks had to get up at 4 a.m. to trudge to work in the winter, to extract even what seems like the tiniest victory. Just you don't have to give up a seat in the bus. It's hard, it's arduous, but it's also winnable. If Bernie had called out his people, that is to say, those tens and tens of thousands who were showing up at his rallies in each major city. In my own city of New York, he had one rally in Manhattan that brought out 25,000 people. That's one borough. The next week, he had a rally in Brooklyn, just literally 10 minutes away on the train.
Mm-hmm.
But to a different borough, he brought out 26,000 people. If he had brought out those masses of people and told them and organized them and provided leadership to start committing civil disobedience to, for example, abolish the student debt, that's a winnable demand.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting in at Congress people's offices, sitting in at city halls, it wouldn't have been easy because the thing that the ruling classes fear most is not giving a concession because they have so much money, a concession is nothing to them. They fear the most that if they give the concession, that the people will feel energized. We have power. We can extract that concession. So guess what? They're going to ask for more. And then they'll ask for more until they ask for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard, hard, hard to extract a concession. I think it could have been one, at least a couple. I think probably Medicare for all could have been one, and abolishing student debt could have been one. I think those were winnable demands. All right. But Bernie had to make a choice. If he started calling out masses of people for civil disobedience, arrest, and the rest, exactly like the civil rights movement, if he had called out masses of people, what would Chuck Schumer say? What would Nancy Pelosi say? What would Joe Biden say? They'd turn to Bernie and say, stop this shit, or you're no longer part of us. And Bernie wanted to be able to whisper in Biden's ear. You know, they're close friends personally, they're family friends. The two wives, Bernie's wife and Biden,
Mm.
go back a long way. He thought by having Biden's ear, he could win a thing here, win a thing there. But he knew if he called on his masses of people to protest and create bedlam from the point of view of the ruling class, it's bedlam, it's revolution, which is what Bernie claimed he supported, revolution, he would lose them. And he was unwilling to lose them. He, first of all, he was a creature of Democratic Party politics. Even though he was an independent, he always worked with them, and he had a comfortable place in Congress. And it's hard, you know the expression, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And he is an older man and has been part of the system for so long. And to suddenly become an outsider and a revolutionary, and to then basically lose his place in Congress, he won't be an influential behind the scenes actor. He'll be a pariah. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't he wasn't willing to risk that. And so he made the choice. And as a result of the choice, his coalition dissolved. A large number of people were left disillusioned and cynical, and he extracted pretty much nothing.